Welcome to the Sacred Healing Podcast, where the old is new, the ancient is innovative, and the forgotten is remembered. We believe that sacred healing is your birthright. Join us on each episode as we uniquely, authentically, and mystically dive into the bold and vulnerable life of many magical humans. From breath, spirituality, shadow work, and all things in the esoteric realm of healing, we don't leave any stone unturned on this bold journey of growth as we start to explore the remembrance of what it means to be human. So take a deep breath in and a deep breath out, and let's get sacred. Hello, sacred beings. I have not recorded a podcast episode in over a year for the Sacred Healing Podcast. And there's so much anticipation and vulnerability in coming back to this work, to putting it all out there. And also, if I didn't, you guys would not get the absolute magic of the humans that I've met over the past 2 years that have come into my life and into the life of Sacred Sanctuary, which has been birthed into the world and has been one of the most humbling and beautiful and magical experiences of my life, to build something so beautiful and then to express, and also to hold space, and to hold space for others who want to hold space and to bring their magic to the world. And so you guys know that I like to speak only if it improves the silence. And I feel like now I actually have some things authentically to say that will help heal and transform the collective. And especially in a time when we're absolutely distracted and consumed by so many different expressions, it's important to me that I can really break through the synthetic and really come into truth and authenticity in my heart, and have the audacity to feel and express and share the magic, not only from my own heart, but also from many magical humans walking along their path that have inspired me along my way. And so I do feel like it's time to bring it back on, bring the mic back around. So with that all said, welcome to season 2 of the Sacred Healing Podcast. Enjoy these episodes. Welcome, 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 humans. I'm here to introduce our first guest, Jenya, who is the founder of the nonprofit Breath and Sound, which is located on Cape Cod in Massachusetts. And she's also a dedicated Ashtanga, Vinyasa, and Yin yoga teacher, and lover of the practice of Kirtan. She's also a nature girl. She loves going camping and hiking, and she's always out in nature doing something, jumping in the ocean. But she's also a really dear friend, and she's someone who's brought light back into my life during some dark times. And she also brought Ashtanga into my life, which is this beautiful practice that we'll be talking about today. And we'll be deep diving into more about yoga, which we've actually never talked about on this podcast. So without further ado, enjoy this beautiful conversation about yoga with my dear friend, Jenya. Hey everyone, welcome to the Sacred Healing Podcast. Today I have the lovely Jenya, who is a friend and somebody who I met about 2 years ago, and she's devoted and dedicated to yoga. We met through yoga, so it feels really like potent and powerful that we are talking about yoga today. And yeah, she's a dear friend, and she also introduced me to the powerful practice of Kirtan, which has now become like a really big, beautiful part of my life. So I'm so excited for you all to meet her, and we're going to be talking about a lot of different things. We're going to be talking about her life. We're going to be talking about her journey into yoga. We're going to be talking about, we'll probably go off on multiple tangents as we do. And yeah, we'll talk about devotion to the beautiful practices that are out there, and specifically Ashtanga, which is like really her bread and butter these days. And then we'll talk about her nonprofit that she's started to help people in this community become better versions of themselves and overcome addiction and create beauty in their own lives. So that's what we're covering today. And yeah, welcome, Jenya, to the show.
Thank you. Yeah. So, yeah, I actually thought it was like manifested, because I'm in the era when I do want to expand and start talking about these practices, not during my classes and people that already do this practice, but to all of the people.
Yeah, to everyone. To get it out to the world.
Yeah. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, and you know, I had my season 1 of the Sacred Healing podcast, and then I took a whole year off. So now I'm coming back into it, and I'm really excited for this like season 2 to launch because I feel like I took my time like really not only like creating and developing beautiful relationships with people in this community specifically, but also people that are so devoted to their craft. And really like embodied in what they're doing, you know, like no matter where you are in the world, you're getting up at 6:15 and you're doing Ashtanga. And I'm like, whoa, what am I doing at 6:15?
Yeah.
Check myself. And you encourage people to really like follow these beautiful rituals. But before we get into all of that, I kind of want to start a little bit more at the beginning of your yoga journey and just see how you got into the practice. Like, what was your not motivation, but what was the calling? You know, what was the thing that really like pulled you into this practice, and where did you get started? Like
Wow.
0 to 1, Jenya.
So when I came to America, I was working in the service industry. So I was working at a restaurant. At that time, I was working at Chinese restaurant here in Mashpee Commons, Asia. And I was working a lot. And I ended up having a back pain. So I think the call was from the body. The call was from the body. And at that time, I was working uh, with a woman. Her name is Kelly. So she became a first yoga teacher. She was a bartender, and then she started to doing this. She called it clinic. 5 weeks of immersion into the practice, starting from zero. And when I started to complain about my back pain, she mentioned that it's very helpful. And I think my first thought was like, oh, like yoga, like this, like funky shapes, like, okay. So I gave it a try with her clinic. And I remember like driving home and I'm like, why did she talk about it? Because at one of her first classes, she started to talk about brushing your teeth. And I'm like, how is it related? And then she was talking about brushing your teeth with a different hand, right? So it's just like take a brush with the left hand today and do it. Or driving home, taking different route. Um, and I'm like, okay, so it's interesting. And now I'm like, thinking about it and I'm like, oh, that's why, that's why it's so much more. But she introduced me to asana practice, breath, and yeah, I became this first teacher of mine, and I started to follow this practice as a physical practice for my body, and I started to feel benefits right away. And being a server at that point, I became stronger in my upper body, so I felt that, and I like to play tennis, so I started to be like bad at that. So and I'm like, wow, this I found a big transformation in the body.
In the body.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So it started in the body. It started with like some pain like that you were experiencing, and then, hey, I'll give this thing a try. Like maybe skeptical of it, but learning the lessons of like, and she was almost teaching you like the balance of the body, like the harmony, like, oh, try brushing your teeth with the left hand, like try being a little ambidextrous, or like taking the other way home that you normally don't take, like getting out of that comfort zone area. And all of that is body, but it's also like mental too.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's mindfulness, right? She was just telling me to just do something different so I can pay attention.
Yes.
And
Presence.
just the presence.
Yeah. I think that the most important currency on this planet at this moment in time is your presence, is your attention. And so it's a beautiful thing that yoga teaches you, is to just be present in that moment. Um, and so you came over from Russia, or not from Russia, from Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan, yeah. So
tell me a little bit about that, like as much as you want to share. I would love to hear.
Well, I always wanted to live abroad. My mom would tell me my whole life, be like, she's like, you're gonna go abroad. But she saw me like in London, like somewhere in Great Britain for some reason. And yeah, I end up trying this program called Work and Travel for students. And I really like it here in America and on Cape particularly. And after the summer I spent here in 2013, I decided to come back in 2015. And when I bought my ticket, I knew that would be one-way ticket.
I love that. I'm so happy.
So, but I had my struggles with things, and as an immigrant, it took me 5 years actually to be able to travel back home and be okay with and knowing that I'm gonna come back and continue my journey in US.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it was a beautiful transition because I was like 23.
Yeah.
And I was brave enough to do that. Because like if you ask me now, I'm like, no, I actually like Cape and I'm gonna stay here. I'm not gonna go anywhere else. Yeah, but back then I was like, all roads are open. I'm gonna go.
Yeah, that's beautiful though. It's such a beautiful time to travel too in your life when you're like, in school, like carefree and like just exploring who you are as a human being, and then you land somewhere and you get a little bit more grounded. So that's beautiful. So you got introduced to this beautiful practice of yoga, of asana. Um, what what kept you going back to it? And then like maybe take me on a journey of like how you wanted to become a teacher, like when that started to come in.
Okay. So yeah, Kelly was just like a getaway um to the practice, and I think my commitment happened when I was going through a breakup. So it was like one of the heartaches that brought me back and brought me back much deeper. So I committed to the studio on Main Street, Hyannis, just be. And the woman who used to own it, Pernilla, she's well known on Cape. She's now and lives in Florida, but back then she was like that guru, that first also teacher. Be like, wow, she was so strong, so confident, and I really enjoyed going there. I felt like I belong, and I cried a lot. And I cried a lot. I was going through breakup, and it was a beautiful mm, modality to use for the hard time at that time.
Yeah.
So and this studio was the first studio where I heard the word kirtan and mantra. Later, when she actually sold the studio to another woman, she came in with the practice, and she would bring her harmonium to the class, and we would chant Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu in the end of the class. And I was like, tell me more. And she wrote the mantra on a piece of paper. I still have it in my yoga bag. And I remember coming home and Googling, and I'm like, wow. And open up a new path. So,
And for the listeners who don't know what that means, can you explain a little bit more about?
Yeah.
Well, maybe let's talk about mantra. Let's get into that, because I think that's a big part. Affirmations, it's like, what we would consider like an affirmation, a prayer. But let's talk about mantra a little bit, because that's such a big part of it. And you mentioned the harmonium too, and I know that's a big part of your life now when you deliver your medicine. It's like you bring in that sound piece to it. So yeah, that first mantra that came in, maybe explain what that means and like what the translation is for everyone who doesn't know, all the listeners.
Yeah, so Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu is a Sanskrit mantra that is a prayer that at that time I heard it in the end of the class, so as an expression of may all beings be happy, free, at peace, healthy, and it's an ancient language, right? And it's not used anymore. But the mantra itself has a vibration, and that's how I was explained too. I was like, I didn't know anything, and it was just so beautifully chanted in the end, like Aloka Samasta, and I'm like, ooh, it sounds good. I feel the vibration in my body, and it's it is a prayer for peace for all beings.
Yeah.
So and
there's thousands and thousands
there's
of mantras.
thousands of mantras, right? A lot of times we will start the yoga class with the chant of Om, and we'll finish with Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, which is also a mantra for peace. And now this is our practice. This is what we do. We gather people, and we have several practitioners who lead Kirtan, which is a practice of chanting. And it is a practice of meditation and devotion to yoga. To yoga.
Yeah.
So at that time it was that transition, the very small step towards seeing a little bit deeper than just a physical practice. But it's interesting how, even though for a very long time, since my actually first teacher training that I'll start talking about soon, I was always in a stand of like, oh, yoga is so much more than physical practice. And now where I am finding myself now is I want to accent, I want to say that, yes, it is not just a physical practice, but the physical aspect, asana, is a entry, right? So I kind of went back and forth with that to being like, oh, there's so much more. There's like meditation, let's chant mantras, and but it all starts on the yoga mat, And I mean, this is the most important practice too. One of them. Well, yeah. So,
well, first and foremost, thank you to that heartbreak, because if it weren't for that heartbreak, I don't know if you would have come back to your mat and come back to yoga. So we'll send a little prayer of thank you to the heartbreaks and the breakthroughs, because I feel like that is a thread line and a connection to say, just like, thank you for the past, and like, thank you for ushering me into this beautiful practice. And when I hear you talk about like those little seeds that were planted, like, oh, what's that? That's a frequency, that's a vibration. What do I feel with that? And like, that is what mantra is, it's the prayer, but it's also this beautiful frequency. And it's like, makes you feel a certain way in your body. You don't even need to know what the Sanskrit means, because it'll make you feel something internally and connect you to our heart. And Kirtan is like a heart-centered practice. It's a beautiful practice. But all these little seeds were kind of being planted for you back then, that now is like a huge part of your ritual and your practice and your devotion, not only to yoga as like the framework, but to mantra and to kirtan and to even like the om, the universal sound of one. Like, all of it is like this beautiful connection, and it all weaves back together. So yeah, let's hear about your teacher training. Let's hear like kind of what got you into like being a teacher and wanting to lead others and guide others through this practice.
yeah. So yeah, I think that studio actually, that first studio made me think of what a beautiful offering it is, and what a healing practice it is. And
And was that vinyasa?
back then it was vinyasa. It was maybe like a power vinyasa or just a regular vinyasa. Some classes were called like flow and alignment and flow. So yeah, but it was vinyasa.
Vinyasa. So for people that don't know about different types of yogas, there's all these different types of yogas. And vinyasa is a breath to movement practice. And then there's, we can talk about yin too, because I know you're big on yin, but like, there's so many different types of yoga. So if you try one and you're like, oh, I hated that, like, just know that there
are
try
others.
something else.
Yeah.
Find a different name for it, and it could be, you could find something that really resonates with you. Cool. So you started on that thread line of the vinyasa
On
practice.
the vinyasa, yeah. So yeah, and I knew it in my heart, and I think I'm just naturally a teacher, right? So whatever comes to me, and if it's transformative, if it's beautiful, and I feel like it's useful to me, then I do want to give it back, And it's just think about like back in school, and I was the one who was like, oh, like I can explain that to you, like it's like when one student is like, oh, do you know the answer? And I'm like, I do, but I want to explain that to you. I don't want to just give you an answer. I want you to know why. So
It's a teacher archetype coming in, like
yeah. So I always knew, uh, and now when it is a big part of my life, and why not, right? So it's and I did want to deepen my practice too. So it was like, yes, I would like to teach maybe part-time,
Mhm.
try it out, but I do want to immerse myself in the practice, and learn more.
Mhm.
And so mm, yeah, in March 2022, not that long ago, if you think about it, um, I went to Costa Rica and took my first training. It was like a month of practice, and it was it was one of the most transformative times of my life.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And but then when I come out of it and I'm like, oh, I actually do not know anything. Now it's time. Yeah, they give you this because 200 hours, as most of teachers already understood, is just that a first touch of what you can learn, what you can deepen your knowledge about
Yeah.
to then give this knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was given a lot of options and a lot of like a big list of books that I can read, and uh, but that's the first time that I heard the word lineage. I remember asking my teacher at that time, we had three teachers, and my teacher Katie, that I kind of connected the most, um, told me that I would recommend to you to pick the lineage because there are so many types of yoga, and yes, you want to learn a little bit about everything and all types, but you do want to devote your practice and teaching to one lineage. And I was like, okay. So back then I was like just thinking about like Shivananda and Hatha was like the first lineage that I was kind of drawn to the most. And now it's Ashtanga. Ashtanga.
Ashtanga.
Ashtanga.
So yeah, I love that. I love the deepening because, you could study so many different things, but um, and that's wonderful as well. But when you're able to like really deepen into something, I do feel like it can become more authentic when you're sharing it and also more embodied when you're sharing it. Um, because like we mentioned earlier, there's like Bikram, there's which is like is that the 26 and 2 now?
26 and 2, yeah.
And then there's Baptiste and Hatha and Vinyasa and Ashtanga. Like there's so many different names for different lineages of yoga. They're all beautiful. They all have the asana practice, they all have the prana practice, the drishti practice. Like they all bring in those aspects of breath and movement and presence. Um, Focus. And so, um, what was it about Ashtanga that really like called to you
Mm.
when you were like, okay, I got to pick a lineage?
Yeah, well, back then I think I was just, even though I heard the advice was given to me, be like, you need to pick the lineage. But back then I was like, oh, I do need to learn about all those lineages and kind of them all a try. And I actually heard about Ashtanga lineage in my first yoga training, and I was told by other teachers that it's a very athletic type of yoga, and it was given that the practice was given to young boys back in India, like they would start practicing at the age of maybe like 7, and it's not suitable for the Western body. So I think that's back then I kind of cut the Ashtanga off from like my lineages.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister started to practice Ashtanga at the same time I started to practice Hatha. And she would tell me all about it. She's like, all you need to do is to start practicing Ashtanga, and you will see the progress in the body and the mind. You will notice, right? Because when you start practicing yoga, you kind of want to get into some poses, and you like a headstand or like a back bend, and it takes time. And so with Ashtanga, it's taken a little bit less of the time, I'd say, as I notice now that the repeated action of the sequence that we do helps a lot. dedication to that one sequence. Well, there are several sequences, but okay, I'm gonna go to so yeah, and when I finally happened to try Ashtanga, because it happened naturally, I didn't look for it, right? After my first teacher training, I connected with one of my friends. We became friends with one of the girls at the training, and she, at that time, she lived in Chicago, so she invited me over. I took a flight to Chicago, and she was like, "Okay, we're gonna go and meet this amazing teacher," and we did. And he was my first Ashtanga teacher. And this energy of the male to the male teacher. And yeah, this first class that we had was standing in plank, Samasiddhi, mountain pose, and maybe like a sun salutation A and B, that was it. And knowing those postures before, I learned them again in a new perspective, right? Be like, oh, this is what it is right now. Okay. So I think that was one of the first time when I was like, okay, I want to learn more. I want to know more, because by just learning about 3 postures, I learned so much about myself, my habits of the mind, and then my body and the practice.
Yeah.
So it was much more than if I come to the class and I go through the whole vinyasa class, which I of course love vinyasa classes, and then I go in my shavasana and I was like, okay, that was great, that was amazing, that was beautiful. That time taken for one posture, learning again about the breath, it was so potent, it was so structured. Yeah, I felt the lineage, I felt the tradition, and that's why I felt the teachings of the East, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned that Ashtanga started to like kind of regulate little boy energy, you know? And it is a more rigid and structured and disciplined practice, which might be considered more of a, like a masculine, energetic practice. But I do think that it is beneficial for all people. But I do know that it is really resonant for like the masculinity energy because it is so structured and ritualistic and disciplined. It's the same sequence every single time, no variation in it, unless you're like going up to these different sequences and different levels. But it helps you master certain postures and poses. And like you said, it's like a simple mountain pose, not so simple anymore. You know, it gets you so present in your body. So I would say something, and you're my first Ashtanga teacher, so oh my God. So something that I noticed, you know, after years and years, like 10 years of teaching and doing vinyasa practices, what I noticed was I was more present in the postures because they're held for a little bit longer. It's a different breath structure. There's a different deepening in some of the postures, especially in some of the like a little bit more like stretchy opening twisting postures. Like the extended side angle for me was like, oh, a whole new world because it's so different than, you know, this fast thing that you might do in a vinyasa class with less cues and less deepening. It was more opening and heart opening and twisting opening. And so I felt more connected to like the somatic experience of it, not only in the body, but also from a mental perspective of like, oh man, okay, I'm being pushed a little bit now from my comfort zone of 10 years of something else, you know, like try something different, almost like the drive the different way home, you know, like try a different practice.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the discipline and the structure and the focus is so beneficial, I think, for, you know, people that want to have some sort of a ritual or devotion in their life, you know, if you're so busy and you like don't have the time to think about what you're going to wear in the morning, you know, get up and put the same thing on every day, you know, and I feel like that's like what Ashtanga is. It takes out like all the mess and like just creates something where you don't have to think. You just show up and you do, you know, you show up and you devote no matter how you're feeling, you know, that day.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like how you said the somatic but not that somatic anymore. It's like you do learn to get into this posture, but can you learn to breathe in it and be okay with that, right? Um,
Yeah, you learn a lot
yeah,
about yourself too. You learn a lot about your mind
yeah.
and patience and like no ego and like especially with some of the harder postures. And I actually did notice when I was taking, your Ashtanga for the first time that way back in the day, one of my vinyasa teachers must have also been an Ashtanga teacher because I was doing some moves that I'm like, oh, I've done this before in a vinyasa practice, but it like was not a vinyasa like posture at all.
Yep.
And you were like, where'd you learn that? I'm like in a random class in San Francisco, somewhere in a dive studio. So yeah, there's like different. I feel like people weave in the different things, and I feel like you do that now too with your vinyasa.
I
You
know.
always plant a little seed of Ashtanga in there, which is cool because I feel like it helps people strengthen. Like one thing I noticed with Ashtanga is like, it's strengthened my upper body more, like able to get into some of those, like you mentioned, the poses where people start yoga and they're like, oh, I want to do a handstand. It's been 10 years and I can barely do a handstand. So everyone relax. But I do think it helps like strengthen the upper body area a lot more and a lot like faster than the vinyasa practice does because of all the balance that's required. And even when you're coming through in your
In the
flow.
transition, yeah, I think that's what builds it the most too.
Yeah.
And the locks, the energy locks that we have, that we work with, right? So it's hardly mentioned in some vinyasa classes that it would be great and useful for vinyasa as well, but in Ashtanga, it's like so necessary because even in triangle, how long can you hold a triangle without like being kind of shaky in it anymore, right? But then if you engage in Mula Bandha and you go in your Uddiyana, so it's a lift and you feel the connection to the feet, and so now you're open, now you're there, and now you can breathe and be fully okay with that, just standing there for as long as you want.
Okay, let's talk about the locks because you brought them up.
Oh,
Okay, so
yes.
let's go through the locks. Like, let's start with the Mula Bandha. Like, if somebody's like, "What the heck are they talking about?"
What are they talking
What are
about?
they saying?
Well, Bandha is one of that. Well, so Ashtanga, as a lot of like modern types of yoga, also has like a pillars, and one we discussed is asana, and then vinyasa part because it was originally Ashtanga Vinyasa yoga, right? So vinyasa part, or some scholars still call it Ashtanga Vinyasa. The vinyasa part is a breath part and movement, right? So and then that's how the vinyasa type of yoga was born too, because it's breath and movement connection. But in Ashtanga, Vinyasa is called what we call the connection of breath and movement. And that's the pillar. Because when you learn the sequence and when you flow already with the sequence, then you constantly use that connection. So it's inhale and exhale. So there's always little action on inhale and an exhale. And then the third pillar is well, it's called Trishana. It's mm, it's the focus where we bring the focus, the attention, where it goes in the practice, and it's bandhas, breath, and drishti. So bandhas, one of those. So when you're in asana and you flow with vinyasa, now you want to bring the focus to your bandhas. And in asana practice, we mostly use two bandhas, Mula Bandha and Uddiyana. And Mula Bandha is an energy lift. So if you talk about performing that bandha, engage in that bandha, is you can think about a little squeeze to your anus, and it's a very subtle squeeze. So, and just when I was in Miami practicing with some teachers, they would say, well, why don't you just squeeze it? And then the subtleness will come. But yeah, it's a very subtle squeeze. So that will lift you, the energy up. And then the Uddiyana comes from also that lower chakra squeeze into the Kegel muscle, right? And then it's so it's very subtle in between those two. And the Uddiyana, the way you can explain it, be if you want to go to bathroom to pee, then you want to stop that, right? So it's a little squeeze there. And so those two locks, they eventually happens naturally, but then you need to maintain that during your asana practice. And those are very helpful. Yeah. And that they are one of the main foundational cues, right, that you want to use.
Yeah, I feel like that's like something that was a fad for a little while where people were like, do 3 Kegels when you stop at every stoplight, like, or something. It was like a thing that people were doing. Just me? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, see, again, it's like America.
Yeah, America, get it done quick, like every red stoplight that you stop at, do 3 Kegels. Yeah. It's like,
yeah.
um,
So,
but yeah, the locks are really important, and I do think they provide the stability in the body, and like and again, presence and noticing, like noticing the body, and a lot of times you'll be able to notice where you might have pain in the body or where your body might feel out of alignment. Our bodies are never going to be perfectly aligned on both sides for sure, but you can find those little subtleties where you can start to create the balance in the skeletal structure as well as like the muscular structure, which is really helpful for balancing our life in general too. It's a metaphor. Yeah, very cool. Okay, and then the
yeah.
drishti. Can you talk more about drishti and like why that's important?
Yeah, and I should probably mention that one of the biggest differences that Ashtanga from other practices is the Mysore style, right? That we want to talk about that a little bit. Um, we have two styles in the practice, Mysore and lead. And Mysore style is your self-practice, yeah, pretty much. So you come to the mat in the presence of the teacher, you put your mat down and you start your practice with your breath, with your gaze, with your bandhas, with your full awareness. You're doing your practice, and the teacher is there to witness you, to see you, to adjust you, maybe hands-on, maybe verbally, but this is your practice. And then so next to you can be a student that started the same sequence, maybe like it's a first series, but he started it 10 minutes later. So you will flow the same sequence, uh, different time. And that's one of the biggest challenges too, to being able to even set in your mind that I'm gonna go to the studio, put my mat and practice by myself. So it's not, but the energy that is created in the studio, in the room, is so unique, so beautiful that it cannot be compared to when you're by yourself, for example, and practicing at home, or even if you're flowing the same sequence with other students. So, but it takes a dedication, it takes a devotion to get up and go at 6 a.m. and then put your mat down and not be guided, be guided by yourself, by your own knowledge and awareness. And so when it comes to drishti, there is a drishti point, the point that you look at. And then yoga is an external practice, the asana is an external practice. You have the gaze. So say you come into upper mountain pose, Urdhva Hastasana. So you bring your arms up and you look up, and maybe to your thumbs, right? And then you go down, forward fold. Look to your nose and keep your gaze there. Then halfway lift, you lengthen your spine and you also look to your nose, the tip of your nose, and then bow again, right? So there's always that drishti that you keep.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's the focal point, that keeps you present. It's the gaze, but
it's a focal point.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So, and
I've noticed too with where your drishti goes, you can open more too.
correct.
If you're in mountain pose, but your gaze is forward, it's different than if you look up because you expand. You expand through the crown, you expand through the third eye, like everything expands up. So it's like more of a honor. And especially in Sun A, it's like we're honoring the sun. These are sun salutations, right? So like gaze, okay, now bow to the sun. And so there's so many deeper meanings behind all of this. How did you learn all the Sanskrit? Was that just like repetitive motion of teaching, and because you teach with Sanskrit, which when I first met you, I took your yoga class, and a lot of the teachers, here in the United States are not teaching with Sanskrit. I feel like that's a really powerful practice that you have, and you're talking in English too, but you're always saying the translation, which I think is so beautiful and unique, and it's why I kept coming back to your classes.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
before we were, even friends or knew each other in like a deeper way.
Yeah.
Yeah, how did that come about for you?
Mm.
And I know you went to India too, so maybe that was part of it. Not sure.
Of course, yeah. Went back even first time in India, which was my 300-hour training. The Sanskrit was like just a normal part of the class, and even though it was so fascinating to me, to teachers, it seemed like it's a normal practice during the class for the teacher. And I well, I like even the thing that I moved to America and I started to speak English, and my mother language is Russian. I always loved the other foreign languages, right? And then so here comes the language that is already not being used. The language itself is a vibrational language, and I think it came naturally, just out of like the curiosity. And every time I learn something about new asana, uh, that especially that I practice, I break the word down and see what's inside the meaning of the word, because the word means the action that we do, and it's important. Um, yeah. Then there are some. mm postures, the name of some postures, they are not even being translated. So like there's a Uttita Hasta, which you lift your leg up, catch your right big toe with your peace fingers, and then you work there. So, well, there is no translation in English. It's like it's a whole action, lift your leg up, catch your big toe. But there is a name for it. And eventually when you come to Ashtanga class, like I just course, so inspired by my Miami trip. Um, my last class with the teachers was led class. It was a primary series, and the postures were called in Sanskrit. And there is a name of the posture. There is a count in Sanskrit, and there is a breath cue, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're so familiar with the practice, you know what you're doing. Um, and you want to be focusing on your Drisana, you can do your Drishti, you can do your breath, you can do your asana, um, and so the cues are not even being given for that. The only thing that is given is the name of the posture and the count of the breath.
I love that you are still a student of this practice too. Like you just went to Miami to that beautiful facility. What was the facility called that you went to?
It's a Miami Life Center.
Life Center, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I found myself such a beginner, and I always knew that, and that's the beauty of the practice. You are always a beginner, but when you're surrounded by such advanced practitioners, you find yourself very humble, and that's beautiful.
Yeah. It's
So
wonderful though that you still devote time for yourself to deepen into the practice so that you can come back and share all the beautiful magic with all of your students too, who are kind of just starting the journey. And you're like, I
yeah,
just started too. I'm a beginner too, but here I am teaching people. But it's beautiful to pass along the lineage and the practice, and everything that you have to give, you give. So
correct,
yeah,
correct,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that. I did learn from some teachers. They were that they took the practice, but they decided to add some props to that. So I think that kind of transformed the way I teach right now, because I do teach Ashtanga, but I teach accessible Ashtanga. So I do use a lot of props, because traditionally Ashtanga is taught without props. And when it comes to a new student that comes to the practice, that's always props. It's yeah, always exploring, learning about where the body is open, where it's tight, and because yes, the practice is coming from um, from India, right? From the East, and people practice from the very childhood, right? So it's the Western body is different, yeah. And so I like that because the Ashtanga, how would I say about it? Traditionally, you're not really allowed to pursue your teaching if you're not authorized with the main guru, right? And even though I've been to Shala in India and I've studied with several teachers who are authorized to teach, I'm still not completely authorized to lead the practice. So that's why having the knowledge about props and having that as a base for my teachings, helping me to move forward with the idea that it's okay for me to teach, to give this knowledge, even though I'm such a beginner. So I find myself very humble. Yeah.
What has your personal practice taught you about, like, what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned in like your life around, you just mentioned like humbleness, but like what are some of the biggest things that it's helped you with like personally in your life?
Well, might as well talk about Miami again. And again, going through this waves of, oh, the yoga is not just asana. Let me talk about bhakti. Let me talk about devotion. Let me talk about that you can practice yoga off the mat and you can actually practice yoga without even practice asana. So that was like the idea that I would have like 3 years ago. And then when I started Ashtanga and I realized what a big part, the biggest part of practice asana is, um, this time when I came back to because I did have some injury, so I came back to practice um, like 5 times a week. And now I'm going to Miami to meet these amazing teachers um, who devote their whole life to studying this practice, who have met Guru who brought this practice to the West. Um, and so the biggest lesson I have is to trust. And to trust myself, right? That I have come so far in my asana sequence, in my asana practice, that I can, that my body is able to open up right now. And it's okay that I, like, especially being injured in the past makes you think like, oh, maybe I'm not ready for this right now, for this deepest back bend, right? And the idea of trusting, yeah, and the trust in the teacher. The teacher sees your body. He's been working with the students like you for many, many years. So you came all the way here. Will you trust? And it was maybe like a fourth day out of the week of practice where it clicked. It clicked, and I softened in my Kapotasana, which is a kneeling back bend, very deep, very heart opening. And it was like millions of tears came to me, be like, "Ooh, it's okay. Yeah, no matter what it is, I can trust right now in this moment." And I think I'm just bringing it back from Miami, and even here, even being here right now, like, can I trust that it's okay? I don't need to be in a box. I can expand, and because everything is an opportunity. So why would you say no? Like, say yes and trust, and things are being aligned. Yeah. So
I love that.
with asana.
Yeah, trusting yourself, and again that comes back to the Mysore practice too, like trusting yourself, trusting your heart to open. Like that's a huge thing that I'm still working on personally. It's like allowing my heart to expand. And once you do, it's like, oh my gosh, why did I do this earlier? Like, oh, wow. Because it allows you to serve in such a higher capacity and frequency. So yeah, thank you for doing all the work.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if there's any other nuggets, we can kind of weave back into it. But I would love to also talk about your nonprofit, Breath and Sound.
Yeah.
Um, so for those who don't know Jenya, she is this beautiful now business owner of Breath and Sound, which is a beautiful nonprofit that helps people with recovery and helps people find, these pathways, these different pathways of mindfulness, and of breath and movement in the body, if they are so called. And so I'll let you talk a little bit more about Breath and Sound and kind of what the mission is there and yeah, what's upcoming for you guys. What's on the horizon?
Yes, I know actually to have some good news too. So, um, yeah, breath and sound. Thinking about just the name of it, yeah, just the name of it. I met a nice woman, girl, in Miami, and I was just telling, when you meet a new people, you're always like, oh, well, this is what I do, and like, she happened to serve people in recovery too, and so we started to talk, and so it brought me back to how the name came to me, how the name was confirmed, and I just love to share that story because I haven't been at that point. I haven't been to church in a very long time, and so I'm just called to go to church, and I'm entering the church, and I have some heaviness on my heart, and I have some ideas, and it's all kind of mixed together. And I'm sitting in church, and I've never been there before. And there is a theme of like a sermon, there is a theme of a year, and there is a word of the year for the church. And it was back in April or maybe like March. So they keep talking about the word of the year, and the word of the year was available. And I'm coming to church, and like just the day before that, I'm Googling if domain for breathandsound.org is available. And I remember taking a screenshot and sending it to my board member, Pete, saying, Pete, this name is available. And I'm walking in the church, and there is a word that sounds out loud available. And then I'm crying, and such a beautiful moment that I just love, love, love this story. And someone comes to me with the box of napkins saying, God saw you today. And that was it. That was the confirmation to me. That was like, this is it. So this was like that big point where I'm like, this is it. I'm gonna buy this domain name. I'm gonna build a website. And interestingly, this is how it started. And there was the idea that before that, yeah, who I want to serve, what do I want to serve with, but I think, and it's okay to say, in my heart that it's still building.
Yes.
It's okay, yeah, because back then, especially when you already have like a nonprofit, you have a name. Now you want to look for funding, and I'm like, oh, I want to help everybody. I want to help people in recovery, but I also want to have help women who are suffering from domestic violence, or I want to help people with disabilities. So it's very broad, and it brought this. It's kind of, I want to help everybody, but I only am myself here, and what can I do? So now I think I'm narrowing it back to the path that I wanted to take this breath and sound nonprofit onto. And yes, the name came, the website came, the logo came, and I'm like, okay, now what's next, right? So we have created a community of people who are sober curious, and who have been in recovery for a while, and we're all supporting each other. So, and then we're not perfect too. I'd like to mention that because yeah, some people have been using severe drugs in the past, like cocaine, and it's not just an alcohol. And now they stopped. and they're sober from them. But for example, they do smoke weed sometimes, right? Or should I say they consume marijuana, right? So it's because it can be considered as a medicine too, and it is a medicine. But yeah, so that's why we're like I think I'm being very gentle around it, around these topics of where you're recovering from. But you're welcome. You're welcome to the community no matter what, even if you had a drink or anything yesterday. So please come today and be curious what this community, where this community can bring you, and the community brings you up. And I recently started to look at the all the offerings that we do, and I just wanted to structure that in my head. And what we do is we gather in community, like that's number one. And then whatever we do, we just have a good time, and we heal by being in a community and being present. And we practice yoga, and we practice kirtan, we practice chanting, we gather for sound bath or like sound ceremonies, which are very transformative, right? And now I did reach out to you before, and I do want to do a breath work, right? Which is a very transformative modality, right? So it's like, people need to know about the breath work, right? So in the breath and sound, it was all there. I thought of breath work, and then pranayama, breath work, but not a holotropic, not like, but just a breath awareness, the meditation on the breath. So we use this, we use community, we have a community, and this is our tool too. And then all this amazing ancient practices we do, yoga, meditation. And then we have a knowledge, right? The third, I think, like goes up like in my head, like three knowledge that we have from all the teachers, from all the amazing traditions. So
so beautiful.
So yeah, I'm excited to continue on with a clearer vision of what it's going to be like. And of course, asana. Asana is number one right now. It's where I'm going, and I actually met up with someone yesterday who has offered a space to breath and sound. And I don't, it's like, I don't know much yet, so I can't say much, but I do know that I felt so aligned, and I felt like everything is happening right now, for breath and sound to expand, to bring more people in, to bring the awareness of what we do and why we do that. So thank you.
Yeah. Why is it so important for you to serve that community? Like what led you to that, to serving that community?
Yeah, and I remember writing a little story about myself, like that is a true story of how I got sober, right? And it is true. I think I was driven by that, but I think the deepest point, the deepest like experience was back in my childhood, right? When I witnessed my mom being involved in this relationship with someone who has an alcohol addiction, and all the very severe bad consequences of such a relationship. And then my father, my biological father, is an alcoholic, right? And I don't want to say I don't want to say that, but it's true. And he has brought a lot of harm to his family, and it's very unfortunate. But I think there is a way for us, as a community, as a human nature here, nature, human nature. Human nature.
Human nature.
Human nature. Right? That's right.
The word.
So we can, we don't need to be on that level, right? And for our kids to see that, and there are ways for fathers to be like, okay, actually, I am practicing yoga right now, or I'm going to gym, or I'm like going to I'm just breathing. I'm sitting here in the quiet and I read Bible. I read Bhagavad Gita. I read any scripture that was, written thousands of years ago that brought so much wisdom. And now I can teach that to my kids.
Mm.
I this is like right. So like as a woman who will want to have like kids in the future, this I want the father of my kids to be that.
Mm-hmm. It's like breaking the cycle of the process of addiction, which is so multifaceted and so in depth for every single unique individual. But the overarching theme would be to kind of break the cycle of addiction, not only in yourself, but for your lineage of your family, like your biological lineage, so that you can carry forward with a new way, a new possibility, a new thread. Like it doesn't have to look that way. It might look a different way. Maybe there's a new addiction created. Who knows?
Correct.
We never know.
We never know.
But at least, knowing or having the power to say, like, I know what I don't want to bring to this. And all these practices have helped me so much personally, like especially with your personal journey. And then how can I help other people along this path? And I do think that it's really important that you said that you're not like this very rigid, like, you can't be in our community if you had a drink yesterday. Because I do think some people get turned away from some programs that, are meant to help. But are so rigid that, especially in our small community, we live on Cape Cod, the biggest heroin, population in America. There was a documentary about us on Netflix. Like, there's a lot of heavy drug, not only heroin, but pills, oxycodones. There's so, alcohol is like not even the worst thing here on the Cape that people get into at a very young age, and so it's so helpful to have an accessible and understanding program led by somebody that is young and vibrant and showing like, hey, I was just like that. Like you're not trying to help somebody where you haven't been down where they are.
Correct.
And not to say down, it's just vibrating at a different frequency.
Yeah, and I mean, as someone who got sober, I again like, and that was one of the like doubts that I had. I was like, oh, but like people get sober, people go to like a detox centers and they, they stay in the sober houses, and I haven't been on this journey. Am I qualified to teach someone to bring these tools into the community? Because I didn't go through that. But like yes, I didn't go through that, but I did go through similar experience inward, right? Where I decided to be like, okay, because yes, I was working in the service industry and I was consuming a lot of alcohol, and it was just a part of my day. It was not even a life. It was like every day I would have some kind of drink or several drinks, mm, and how it influenced because I started to practice yoga and I was still drinking, right? And I was like, oh, I gotta choose here, right? Because it's either or. Like you can try your best to do both, but it's like very unlikely that both will stay. So you have to. So I consciously decided, well, with the help of mantra, actually back then, I remember how mantra helped me. I decided that this is it. Thank you. I had fun, so it's over our relationship. Um, and yeah, and now you see the difference. Wow, like I want to be on the mat. I want to wake up early, and um, now I want to serve my community. I want to help people. I do.
Mm.
So but yeah,
It's beautiful when it's so personal too, because it's your journey is like the living embodiment of what comes through breath and sound and what you bring to the community. And you have a wonderful board member team that's helping you and guiding you. And yeah, I think it's just such a beautiful service and gift to the community. And um, yeah, it's wonderful that it's so personal too.
good, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I think not just people in recovery, but the sober, curious, right? Like, or anything, I remember working, I just like when my first yoga studio, I still worked there at the Vogue, and we had students who would come to the class and who would leave the class and smoke a cigarette. Are they doing it now? No. they don't smoke anymore, you know. So, but it's important to um, have people, give people the space to see, like, this is what I do, and then will I enjoy that cigarette? Probably not. You know, and then will I feel good? Probably not. But then, like, it's just, you can have both right now, but you will see that yoga is so much better than anything else. I'm like, yoga.
Let's just all get addicted to yoga.
Yes.
I think we are.
We
We have a problem. We need a recovery for yoga
I
addiction.
know, like,
Oh
yeah.
my goodness.
Oh
Um,
man.
Well, thank you so much. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you feel like it's important to share?
Hmm. I don't know. Yeah. Well, this is my first time ever at some kind of podcast, so I'm so honored, and I was nervous, but I feel good. You
Yeah.
know, it's
Yeah, and thank you for sharing. And I think too, if we come back around, we can go deeper, Like this is just giving everyone a baseline of kind of like what are the curious. It's like to get curious on what are these practices and what have they done for other people, and maybe there's an opportunity that somebody out there doesn't use that as one of their sacred healing practices and wants to give it a try. Because that's what this podcast is all about, is finding sacred healing practices, and just delivering the message, right? And people can kind of pick and choose on the charcuterie board, which really aligns with them. But yeah, I would love to go even deeper down like a specific topic the next time we chat. And
yeah.
I think it's beautiful and impactful for everyone. So thank you for being here. Thank you for, oh my God, I didn't know it was your
Thank
first
you.
podcast.
Oh,
Wow,
yeah.
you're so natural.
Well,
Yeah, it was beautiful. Thank you for sharing, and
thank you.
yeah, thank you for your time, and I love you so much.
And I love you.
And thanks for not calling me out for not coming to my Ashtanga mat recently.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
I was like, oh, she's gonna call me out today on my
very
podcast.
resistant to my sword. Remember that.
I'm so
So
resistant.
she's resistant to my sword. And then again, that's the hardest part. The hardest part, the self-practice. Just get in there.
I'm like, no, I want you to lead me.
Yeah. I know it's nice, but it's actually harder. The lat practice is harder.
Yeah.
My sword is hard when to get on the mat.
Yeah.
But when you're dead, then you can take your breaks.
When you're dead, you can take a break. Yes. Oh my God, that is the yeah. That's like the mantra of this whole podcast. When you're dead, you can take a break.
Yeah, just do it.
I love it. Okay, well, thank you so much. Thank you, sacred beings, for being here today. We love you so much, and we hope that you come back again and listen to us soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me.